Hi all, welcome back to another lecture of DBMS, and in this lecture we will learn how to create ER diagrams. Basically we'll see the steps to create an ER diagram. Then we'll see entity identification, how we identify entity, how we identify relationship, how we identify cardinality, and how we identify the attributes. Along with that, we will, after learning these identification techniques, we will learn how to create ERD with that, and then we will see the best practices for creating ERDs. So let's begin with the first topic of this lecture. So first is steps to create ER diagram. So here creating an ER diagram involves specific steps to ensure clarity, accuracy and completeness in representing the system's data structure. So basically it's very important to show the clarity and accuracy and completeness in the database structure through the ER diagram. So first we first we identify the entity. What are the different types of table or entity we need to create based on the business specifications? So first determine the key or entities in the system. So let's suppose user, product, order and represent with them with the rectangle. So for the user, product and order case, we know that there is need to create one user table, then there is need to create one product table, and along with that there should be one order table, right? So this is what we have identified the type and number of entity requirements. Next is relationship identification. We should identify like how these entities are going to be related to each other and what is the relationship between those two entities should exist. So define how the entities relate, users, place or order, and depict this relationship with the diamond shape, right? Cardinality identification, it basically specifies the cardinality of the relationship, like one to many, many to one, like what type of relationship exists between those two entities, right? So that is called cardinality identification, and we should identify, let's suppose we have created one person identity and we have one order entity, right? So we know for one person can have multiple orders, so basically it is one to multiple relationship. That is what cardinality identification means. Next is attributes identify, means determine the attributes for each table, for each entity. What are the total number of attributes should be there for each entity? So you should identify what are the total attributes you need to require to add for the entity. Next is after identifying all these 4 attributes, go and create for the ERD. So create a visual representation connecting entities, relationships and attributes clearly with the lines. So example, in a universe, a student enrolls in a course, right? And a student must be assigned to at least one or more course. So here we need a student table, a course table, and at least one student, every student should at least, enroll with at least one course, right? And each course is taught by a single professor. So we will have a professor table also. And every one professor should enroll with teach one course. To maintain the instruction quality, a professor can deliver only one course. So for the maintaining the quality, one professor can only teach one course. So means there is a one-on-one relationship between this also, and there can be one to multiple, but at least one student should every student should enroll in at least one course. So means it can be more also. So basically here is one to many relationship. So this is how, on the basis of business requirement, how we draw the diagram, and with the help of like how to identify the entities, relationship between those and the cardinality, basically one to many, many to one and so on, and we go to draw for the best ERD, basically ER diagram. Now, first is entity identification and how we actually identify. So let's suppose entity identification is the main entity in the system which we want to represent, like user, product or orders, right? In the case of order thing. So basically we use rectangle to represent these entities in the diagram. So let's suppose we have a given example called student, course and professor. So we will be having a student table, a course table and a professor table. Student will be having their own attributes and will represent the information about the student. Similarly, course will show the number of courses with the names, with the number of chapters and all that, and professor will include the professor details having the age, the ID and the department they are related to, the subject they want to take, right? So that is why they need, here in this case we need 3 different entities. Second comes the relationship identification. Here we actually identify how the entities are related to each other. like user place orders, product belong to categories and something. Like let's see, in the case of student, course and professor, we know that every student should get assigned a course, right? And every professor should deliver at least not. In case of every professor, to maintain the quality, they are supposed to deliver one course, right? So this is the deliver relationship between this and all these like between those two tables or those two entities, we have a relationship between it, right? So student is assigned a course and professor delivers a course. This is what a relationship between the entities means. Second comes the cardinality relationship and identification. So here we will actually define the cardinality, which describes the number of instances of one entity that must be associated with each entity of another entity. So here in the student, one student can have multiple courses, and multiple courses can one course can be taken by multiple students also. So it is like many to many relationship, right? In case of course, to maintain the quality, one professor is allowed to take one course, so it is one-on-one relationship. So this is how we actually identify the cardinality between the entities. So we assign cardinality to relationship. A student can be assigned multiple courses and a profession can deliver only one course to maintain the quality. So after entity, relationship and cardinality identification, next identity of attributes comes into picture, where we actually define how many attributes and what type of attribute is needed for each entity. Like for student ID and name is very much important. For course ID and course name is important. Professor, employee ID and professor name is important. Other attributes can also be added, but these few attributes are very much important to identify. Here employee ID will be uniquely identifying each instances in the professor table. Course ID will be uniquely identifying the each instances in the course table, and similarly student ID will be uniquely identifying the students in the course in the student table. This is what primary key will be this student ID, primary key will be course ID, and primary key will be the employee ID. Other attributes can also exist like phone number, address, but those are not very much important. It depends on the business requirement if they want to add it or not, right? So we study the files, forms and reports, data maintained by organization to identify attributes. We also interview various stakeholders to identify entities and map them to attributes. So that is all about how to identify the different types of attributes and the required type of attributes for each entity. Now, after learning all these and after identifying all these attributes, we should go with the creation of the ERD. So we should use lines to connect attributes to entity and entities to relationship, ensuring the diagram is clear and organized. So here while creating the ERD, we should connect attributes to entities and entities to relationship, ensure that the diagram should be clear and organized. So like how student will be having student ID and student name as an attribute, and it is having many to many relationship with the course table, which is having course ID and course name as an attribute. So this shows a relationship between these two tables. Similarly, each professor can deliver one course, so there is one-to-one relationship, and that is called and having the employee ID and professor name as their attribute. So after having all this information, this is how at last the ER diagram of the student, course and professor will look like. So what are the best practices for ER diagram? How can we make it best out of all? First, eliminate any redundant entities. So basically, you should try to eliminate the duplicate entities or the duplicate relationship between the entities. Second, you need to make sure that all entities and relationships are properly labeled. So no such, relationship which you think it can exist and you are not adding it. It should not be the case. You need to make sure that all entities and relationships are properly labeled. Next is there can be multiple, there may be various valid approaches to ER diagram. It's not like only for one business idea, there should be only one ER diagram can be made. No, there can be multiple ER diagrams prepared for the single business perspective, right? So you need to make sure that ER diagram supports all the data you need to store. But how you are making that ER diagram, you need to understand like whatever the business proposal and their requirements are, all the data you are maintaining in your ER diagram or not. Like it can be the relationship, the attributes, and all those things. Then you should assure that each entity only appears a single time in a ER diagram. Entity means a person, table, if you have created a person table to have the details in the person, like have the details about the person, like name, ID and all, so it should only be present in the person entity. It is not like it should be present in the customer entity, right? So each instance or each entity only appears a single time in the ER diagram. Name every relationship, entity and attribute, right, are represented on your diagram. So whatever the relationship, entity and attributes you are using, name it to all. Never connect relationship to each other. So always connect entities via relationship, but never connect two relationships with the relationships. Okay, so never connect relationships to each other. And you should use colors. Basically, you can use colors to highlight important portions of the ER diagram, which you feel like entities are very much important to highlight, right, compared to attributes. So you can highlight with a bright color to so these are the best practices for creation of ER diagrams, and those were the things, type of like attributes of identification, like identification attributes, like entity attributes, relationship, cardinality identification, all those things which needs to be taken care while drawing or designing the ER diagram for making the ER diagram to be best. And that is what all it needed. And we have also seen the best practices for creating the best ER diagram. And that was all about the whole lecture. I hope you understood well and learned well. Now let's meet in another lecture. Till then, keep learning. Take care of yourself and your family too.